Welcome to Amplifying Wellness with TLC, a place where we discuss your self-care and wellness through our guest stories, information, and tips on how to live healthier and happier lives. We are Twin Life Coaching and Business Services with your host, myself, Tara Lehman, and my business partner and, of course, sister, Barb Schutz. We care about increasing awareness around self-care and mental health through this podcast, coaching, and more. To find out about all of our services and our community, please visit us at twinlifecoaching.ca. As a reminder, this podcast is for sharing of stories and information only and is not intended to be or replace any medical advice you are seeking or have received.
Today, we are welcoming Lisa Tahir, founder of Psychoastrology and author of the Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Barb. I appreciate you and Tara having me today. This is awesome.
I'm excited. We're excited.
Lisa, can you start by telling us a little bit about your background in regards to wellness and self-care?
Sure. I think the place to start is that I became a therapist in my 20s after starting my own journey and process in individual psychotherapy when I was just 21, and two friends of mine were seeing a therapist named Marilyn in New Orleans and really thought I could benefit from some sessions. And it took me a while. I felt afraid. And I think a lot of people, some of you listening even, might feel afraid to open Pandora's box, as it's called, of things in the past that it's like, oh, I'm just so glad that's over. And I was in that place in my life in my late teens, early 20s. But these two friends encouraged me. They were wise enough to say, like, Lisa, you know, you made it through some hard things, but if you don't unpack those in a deliberate way, which is the wording I have now, it can show up in your life in intrusive ways. And I just had some trust and trepidation and worked with an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, and I knew, like, this is how I want to spend my life, helping people. So I became a licensed clinical social worker, went to Tulane University, and now it's been over 25 years of serving others in this capacity to help you heal your wounding and your emotional system, which I've learned is a guidance system to make sure that you can really identify when your intuition is speaking to you and through you to make choices to live more and more of the life that you want. That's also been my journey, to live more and more of the life that I want. So I'm walking this path with you as I'm guiding as well.
Awesome. That's excellent. And it's good that people can then relate as well when you walk in the same path, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Why don't we start our conversation today with you defining the Chiron effect for our listeners, just in case they don't know what that means.
Sure. And I didn't know what Chiron was either. It's Chiron, and it's like a K, Chiron. I remembered from grad school a reference to Carl Jung and his writing on the collective unconscious and the archetypes. The wounded healer is one of those archetypes. That's who Chiron is in Greek mythology. He was the founding father of medicine, therapy, pharmacy. And whenever you and I go to the doctor today and you see the staff of medicine, the two snakes around the staff, Chiron actually gave that to Asclepius in Greek mythology. And I thought that was, cool to learn that there's this reference in our daily lives to Chiron. It didn't really help me, though, when I sought to answer the question, why do I have so many successful clients that are still experiencing anxiety and depression? And why am I, as a person that's successful, been in therapy at that point 20 years, why am I still feeling anxiety and depression? What am I missing? And asking myself, the universe, just really seeking deeply the answer to that question. And I meditate. So in meditation, when I was sitting quietly, I heard Chiron, and it was gentle at first. I wasn't very impressed. I expected some bigger download of information, but as you may know, when life wants you to get something, it starts showing up a bit louder and louder. And I knew enough to know, okay, Lisa, sit down and start exploring this Chiron thing. And I learned about what I just shared, Chiron in Greek mythology, Chiron in astronomy, was discovered in the 70s. It is designated both as a minor planet and a comet, which is unusual in our solar system. It was the first of its kind. It orbits elliptically between the planets of Saturn and Uranus. And I thought, well, that's cool, but this isn't like answering my question. And then somehow was led to astrology, which I've always understood as a symbolic language, as a blueprint in the sky of when each of us were born. Ancient peoples really use this to define and discern life and crops and so many things that now we have modern technology for. And when I saw Chiron in astrology, I was led to pause and spend some more time here. What does this mean for me and my clients? And I learned that Chiron in your birth chart, just like you might know you're a Gemini or a Virgo or a Leo or an Aquarius, Chiron is in one of those signs. And it means something completely different altogether that most of us might not know. And it explains the area of our lives in our minds that we tend to create patterns around, patterns of thought. Our thoughts that we repeat over and over become our belief system. Those belief systems that we have inform the decisions that we make as far as what we do and what we don't do in our lives. And you hear a lot in psychology and spirituality, these blocks. It's always kind of driven me a little crazy, like hidden blocks. It's almost like something's trying to bamboozle us. And I don't believe life or the universe at all are trying to bamboozle us. It's like a constant invitation to evolve and go deeper and learn more about ourselves in a loving way. And I think the only blocks we have to do with the ways we don't believe in ourselves, the way we feel less than, the ways that we judge and criticize. I think that's what really blocks us from happiness. And Chiron in your birth chart reveals that. It reveals how you might think patterns of thought like Chiron in Aries having to do with a wounding and your sense of value and worth, that you tend to devalue yourself. It's hard for you to credit yourself and feel like you're good enough. And you might resort to behaviors like people pleasing to source love. And it's so important. I realized that's what I was really looking for. The areas that we still harbor criticisms and doubts about ourselves. And that's what we tend to hide from people and even our own self. And when we bring those aspects to the light and really love with empathy and compassion, those parts of ourselves, they start to transform and really tell us more about how we want to grow to have more happiness. And I'll just pause there to check in with both of you. How does that sit with both of you?
Absolutely. Yes. I was thinking about the whole belief systems, that we grow up with even, or that are taught to us, and, those limiting beliefs and exploring how to break some of those while you were talking. So yeah, I'm curious what you think about that when I'm thinking about those thoughts of breaking some of those limiting beliefs, how that goes in with what you're referring to here.
Sure. I think first it's knowing, like even hearing limiting belief. I didn't know that I had necessarily limiting beliefs when I really started to lean into Chiron and what that placement meant for me. It really made sense with my Chiron being in the sign of Aries, this area of devaluing and not crediting myself, really on this hamster wheel of performance. Like I have a US patent, I have a nonprofit, I was doing all these things that are good and that I wanted, but I wasn't allowing myself to feel proud, to just take a moment, if not months, to just be like, you've done enough. Like, you're doing really awesome, Lisa. And I didn't realize that that was causing me to feel a level of unhappiness and like I'm never good enough. And that's common for this placement. People that are really successful, but you don't feel connected to it. And you really drive yourself, and it causes burnout. It causes compassion fatigue. It can cause health problems that stress and anxiety and overworking can cause in your physical body. And so I started to really believe I needed to write a book about this. And it took me 3.5 years to research and to write and tie this together along with the other placements. Chiron in the sign of Pisces, for example, has to do with, and Mother Teresa had her Chiron in Pisces, and it has to do with overgiving and depleting yourself. And I think Mother Teresa is such a powerful example of a woman who learned how to balance that, to give at the highest level and serve while also taking care of herself. And so it's really about, I think, this ebb and flow of energy going out from us and back into us, and learning how to manage that, and learning not to be so critical and harsh, especially as women. We expect so much of ourselves in different roles, wearing so many hats. So I think for women particularly, my book centers on compassion and empathy as tools for healing and self-forgiveness, because we're often taught forgiveness is for other people, but it's first and foremost for you to be able to know that life will give you so many opportunities to try again, that you don't have to be so hard on yourself. In fact, to go lighter with more encouragement can help you pivot and shift the things and aspects that you maybe deeply want to and aren't sure how to, approaching it from a more compassion-based perspective.
Yeah, very good.
So,
So
go
ahead, Barb.
I had a quick question too. Part of the title of your book is Core Wounds.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could just kind of speak to what that is.
Great question. So I see this. So there's a spectrum. Core wounding is on one side of the spectrum. And some of us with core wounding are those of us that experience childhood trauma, sexual abuse, domestic violence, abandonment of some sort, and neglect. On the other end of that spectrum are people that had healthier childhood experiences. So this might be more of like an ouch point, or it's not like a deep wounding in yourself. It's more of a, occasionally I stumble in this area. And so in the interest of brevity and creating a title, my publisher and I decided to go with core wounding, since that's when it can feel more challenging to move through beliefs when they have been core wounds, when you have experienced trauma. And my expertise has centered around working with childhood survivors of trauma. And so that's a wheelhouse really familiar to me. And I wanted to reach that audience to help you if you've experienced some of those deeper childhood wounds, a guide for you to use my book. I offer some journal prompts and ways that you can do this with my book. 20 minutes, say it, reading at a time, lighting a candle, having a journal. So a way to help you to help yourself, because that's when, the most valuable therapy I've had is somebody helping me learn to help myself. So we're directing there. And though the things that have happened to you, they very well weren't your fault, especially when it comes to trauma. But it can be empowering when we take responsibility to heal, so that we can be happier instead of feeling like this is like drudgery and I dread doing this. Like when we look at it, is like, this is my path to happiness. And often those stories that were the most painful are your message that you get to share with others to help them just as you're helping yourself. And so to me, that's really exciting, in fact.
Yeah. There are a lot of, there's a lot of stories where you see people on stage talking about their core wounds, so they can help a generation who might be going through some of those same traumas. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to come back to something you touched on earlier, which is just astrology in general. And I love astrology myself. Barb and I used to watch the stars all the time as kids, but
I love that.
Yeah, even and our Science North, they have a whole area for astrology and around indigenous peoples and stuff like that. So a lot of that, you're right, like comes from various different cultures about what astrology means. So how can we use that to help with healing ourselves?
Well, astrology is actually the diagnostic point. The healing components come in with taking personal responsibility for ourselves and really applying psychology. I bring in spirituality, in really identifying what you believe about spirituality for yourself. And it's not necessarily the religion of your childhood. It might look and feel different from that. It might be that as well, or it might be having uncertainty around that. And maybe you find peace and connection in nature, and that's wonderful. That's going to help you to learn the self-soothing skills that are necessary to really revisit some of the places in your mind, in your memory that were painful for you, and the decisions you made about yourself, what you decided was true for you as a result of those occurrences, and what maybe you want to release and give up as far as like surrendering that to believe something more and better for yourself, that maybe life can be easier for me. I actually like it to be easier. I'd like people to be kinder. I'd like to have more clarity around making decisions in various aspects of my life.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're
Well, that's
welcome.
great. Do you have a couple of wins you could share when it comes to using empathy to heal wounds?
You know, I would suggest that you try it, that both Barb, you and Tara, and those of you listening, to take something that has occurred, be it today, in the past, something that you still have like a hardship around. Like it comes up in your memory and it's like, oh, like I still don't feel good about this regarding yourself. And I invite you to do this process where it's like really, and if you want to do it with me now, if you can close your eyes and kind of breathe through your heart. Our heart is truly the seat of compassion and empathy. Imagine, even place a hand there if you can, and just touching into that version of yourself that you were, and that you didn't have the skills to show up differently or do differently. And that I think the invitation is like, I want to have those skills. I want to know to do better for myself or better for someone else. And to really say, like, I want to forgive myself for not knowing. What was my deeper need there? What do I need to be able to show up differently? And it might be some more kindness. It might be that nobody took the time to help you learn that, like, this is how you handle a situation, and to really just make a choice to go more light and easy, and to even say, I'm just so sorry you went through that to yourself. I'm just so sorry that things turned out like that. I'm just so sorry that happened to me. I'm just so sorry if it's something right now. I'm just so sorry I'm going through this. And really spend enough time to feel the shift in your body. It might bring up some tears. It might bring an emotional release, to just really slowly walk yourself through and attend to that part of yourself. And that's what empathy is, putting yourself in your own shoes. And you make sense in the context of your own mind, and to seek to know and to understand what was happening there. And just slowing down, that when something occurs like that, to maybe pause, to take the time you need to figure it out and allow yourself that, so that you can show up differently. How does that feel for both of you?
Good. I like self-reflection type things like that. I think it's such an important part of any healing process, or even just moving forward with goals, right?
Well, and I suggest dropping out of the mind and into the body. We're so in our heads and our culture with the goals, with the achievement. And I suggest, if you can just put that shit aside for a little bit and feel into your body, feel into like your deepest need emotionally. It doesn't have to make sense. In fact, allow it to not make sense, to really be in touch with your needs outside of all this stuff out here, and really, really put that aside to get in here with you. What are my deepest needs? And write some of those desires down, write down some of those aspirations that just really would delight you and help you feel some more peace, and start to nurture those in some way over this next year, and see what happens. To take time to get out of our achievement-based world into this like intrinsically focused, meaning what makes me feel good, inner world within all of us.
Love that. Love that idea.
So let's, sum up our conversation today by asking you if you have a hot tip for our listeners that can really help us start? I mean, some people will find this difficult to start to self-forgive. Is there a hot tip that can get us started if that is the case?
I do. I actually wrote down 3 things with what
Awesome.
I thought about our show and kind of meditated over
Yeah.
what might help, because I love practical wisdom. There's a lot of that in my book.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 or 6 takeaway steps for every placement of Chiron, which there are 12 placements of Chiron representing the 12 signs of the zodiac. So I give you takeaway steps as well as affirmations that might help you in that area. But 3 things today that might help you wherever you are. The first and foremost that's helped me is to really get curious about your emotions. They are meant to be information to guide you. And instead of quickly trying to move through, be it a feeling of betrayal, anxiety, grief, loss, discomfort, really stop to like, what does this emotion want me to know about myself and life? Because it's about guiding you. Our emotions want to guide us to where we want to be. So if you're uncomfortable doing something or being around someone, listen to that. My second tip is learn to honor your intuition, even when it's not logical, that we have an intrinsic sense and knowing of people, places, and things. And instead of letting your brain override you, pause and listen. If you don't feel like something or someone is meant for you, steer away and see what presents instead. It's often going to be more of what you really want when you start to listen, kind of put your ear to the ground of life, so to speak, and listen and feel. The third piece is try not to take score or stop too soon. Allow things to unfold. Everything has a gestation period, just like a baby in the womb. And that 9 months for a child might be 9 months in your life for something to materialize. It might be 5 years. It might be a few days. To really try not to take score too soon when things are still in the process of becoming, and judge them to be like, this isn't right. I'm not where I'm meant to be. Yes, you are. I think to really find a way to make peace with where you are is key. And allowing our dreams and desires to unfold so that they can, so we don't stop them prematurely with our doubt or with our judgment or criticism by taking score too soon. Learn to soothe that.
Great. Thanks. Great tips.
Yeah, those are
You're
awesome.
welcome. Thank you.
Lisa, if our audience wanted to learn any more about you or your book, how could they reach you?
I think the easiest way is through my website, which is nolatherapy.com, NOLATHERAPY.com. It stands for New Orleans, Los Angeles Therapy. And I live in both New Orleans and Los Angeles. You can Google my name, Lisa Tahir, and my book's available everywhere books are sold. And if you have a favorite local bookstore, a brick and mortar, which I love, you can go in and bring them the title of my book, and they can order it for you to support our local bookstores.
Excellent.
Oh, wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for such a great conversation today, Lisa.
I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you so much, Barb and Tara.
Thank you.
We also want to remind our listeners of our Amplifying Your Wellness with TLC community. We are here for you and can help you through a safe and welcoming community with discussion groups, ebooks, workshops, and more. You can find the link on our website to explore more. We hope to see you there.
Thank you again to Lisa and our listeners for joining us today. We hope you were able to take away some great key points or information that can help you on your self-care journeys. To learn more about all of our services, please visit us at twinlifecoaching.ca. That's .ca as in Canada. Until next time, remember, you've got this.